oldest daughter, my son-in-law, my future, my past, my present, and my audiences.
When Judy Garland died at just 47, the world mourned a legend. But behind the tributes was a startling reality. Despite decades of success, she left behind no fortune for her family. It didn't make sense. She had starred in major productions, launched comebacks, and remained a sought-after performer. Yet her final years were filled with unstable relationships, financial struggles, and deals that seemed to push her further into trouble. As the truth emerged, it became clear that Garland's story wasn't just tragic. It was far more complicated than anyone realized. The beginning of a heavy spotlight. Judy Garland didn't exactly stumble into show business, she was born into it. With both parents working as vaudeville performers, her arrival on June 10, 1922, almost felt like the beginning of a script already written. The only question wasn't whether she'd perform, but how soon she'd be pushed onto a stage. Back then, she wasn't Judy Garland yet. She was Frances Ethel Gumm, a name that didn't quite carry that Hollywood sparkle. It sounded ordinary, maybe even forgettable. But behind that simple name was a life that would turn out to be anything but. What no one could see at the time, especially not a toddler, was just how heavy the cost of fame would become. By the age of 2, Frances was already performing at her father's movie theater, standing under the lights alongside her older sisters, Mary Jane and Virginia. Together, they were known as the Gumm Sisters, with their mother Ethel playing piano to guide the act. On the surface, it looked like a childhood filled with music, applause, and bright costumes. But underneath, something far more complicated was quietly taking shape. That fragile sense of normalcy didn't last long. By 1926, rumors about her father's involvement with young boys began to spread, and the whispers quickly turned into a full-blown scandal. The family tried to outrun it, relocating to Lancaster in hopes of starting fresh. But scandals like that don't just disappear. The damage followed them, settling into every corner of their lives. At home, things began to fall apart. Frances watched as her parents' marriage slowly unraveled, piece by piece. But while that relationship was collapsing, her mother had already locked onto a new mission, turning her daughters into stars, no matter the cost. Frances, still just a child, had very little say in any of it. Her mother controlled everything, from her schedule to her image. Years later, Frances would give Ethel a chilling nickname, calling her the real Wicked Witch of the West, a label that spoke volumes about what she had endured. It was Ethel who first introduced her to substances, putting her on a strict and dangerous routine designed to keep her performing at all times. Mornings came with stimulants to keep her energized, and nights ended with pills to force her to sleep. It was a cycle that didn't just steal her childhood, it quietly set the stage for lifelong struggles. For years, Frances continued performing with her sisters, but even their stage identity became a problem. The name Gumm didn't exactly command attention, and at one point, a theater in Chicago reportedly listed them as the Glum Sisters, a mistake that stung more than it should have. It was clear something had to change. In 1935, the group rebranded as the Garland Sisters, a name that finally carried a bit of Hollywood polish. But even within that trio, it was becoming obvious that Frances stood apart. Her voice, her presence, there was something undeniable about her. The transformation didn't stop there. Inspired by a song by Hoagy Carmichael, she adopted a new first name. Frances Gumm became Judy Garland, and with that change, a star was finally beginning to take shape. Not long after, during a performance at the Orpheum Theater, someone important happened to be in the audience. Songwriter Burton Lane had been sent by MGM's powerful studio head, Louis B. Mayer, to scout fresh talent. As the performance unfolded, Lane's attention locked onto Judy. There was no question in his mind. She was the one worth watching. He reported back with glowing praise, and within days, Judy found herself auditioning at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Standing in that room, she gave everything she had. Her voice carried a depth and strength that didn't seem to match her age. When she finished, the silence that followed said everything. The studio didn't hesitate. She was signed immediately, skipping the usual steps entirely. To them, she was a rare find, a diamond in the rough. But even as they celebrated, they also saw a problem. At 13, Judy didn't fit neatly into any category. She wasn't young enough to be marketed as a child star, but she wasn't mature enough for leading roles. Physically, she didn't match the polished, glamorous image the studio preferred either. Standing at just 4 feet 11 inches, she was cast into girl next door roles, a label that slowly chipped away at her confidence. The environment around her only made things worse. Studio head Louis B. Mayer reportedly referred to her as his little hunchback, a nickname that cut deep. At the studio school, she was surrounded by striking young stars like Ava Gardner and Elizabeth Taylor, constant reminders of the beauty standard she was told she didn't meet. Executives even went as far as altering her appearance, reshaping her teeth and nose in an effort to mold her into something more marketable. By the time her career began to take off, Judy wasn't just dealing with fame. She was carrying a growing sense of inadequacy that would follow her for years. Even in her early success, the studio kept her boxed into a very specific image. She was dressed in modest, almost childlike outfits that didn't reflect who she was becoming. Director Charles Walters later observed that despite being one of the studio's biggest earners, she was often treated as the least glamorous. That constant comparison left a lasting emotional mark. Then came a moment that felt almost too painful to be real. Just as her professional career was beginning, Judy received news that her father had been hospitalized with meningitis. Still, she went ahead with a scheduled radio performance. As she sang, her father listened from his hospital bed. By the next morning, he was gone. It was a devastating loss, but there was no time to grieve properly. The industry kept moving, and so did she. During her first year at MGM, Judy found herself in direct competition with another young talent, Deanna Durbin. The studio treated it like a silent contest, unsure which of the two would ultimately fit their vision. To settle it, they cast both girls in a short film called Every Sunday, placing them side by side. When it was over, Judy's raw, emotional performance stood out. MGM made its decision, and from that point forward, she carried the weight of proving they had chosen correctly. At 14, she delivered a standout performance at Clark Gable's birthday party, singing "You Made Me Love You." The moment earned her his admiration and marked a turning point. Even Mayer took notice, celebrating her in a way that blurred uncomfortable boundaries. As her career progressed, Judy developed a deep crush on her co-star Mickey Rooney. Their on-screen chemistry made them a popular pair, leading to a string of musical films. But off-screen, the story was different. Rooney didn't return her feelings, and Judy found herself stuck playing the same role in real life that she did in movies, the girl longing for someone who wouldn't choose her. Behind the scenes, things were growing darker. The studio's demanding schedules were fueled by a steady supply of pills. Amphetamines kept performers awake and working, while sedatives brought them back down. Judy would later point to this environment as the starting point of the addictions that would follow her throughout her life. At the same time, the studio fixated on her appearance. Convinced she was overweight, they placed her on strict, often unreasonable diets. On one occasion, a proper meal was replaced with nothing more than soup and lettuce. It was a constant reminder that no matter how talented she was, it never felt like enough. As she grew older, another disturbing reality emerged. Once she reached her mid-teens, she began facing unwanted attention from powerful men in the industry. According to her later accounts, Louis B. Mayer himself crossed serious boundaries, masking inappropriate behavior under the guise of mentorship. For a long time, it became something she endured quietly, another part of the system she felt trapped in. But eventually, she pushed back. At one point, she confronted him directly, making it clear she would no longer tolerate it. It was a rare moment of defiance in a system built to silence voices like hers. And tragically, Mayer wasn't the only one. The girl Hollywood tried to control. In 1938, Judy Garland stepped into what would become the defining role of her career, Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. But her casting wasn't exactly a first-choice decision. Studio head Louis B. Mayer had initially tried to secure Shirley Temple for the part, and when that didn't work out, he turned his attention to Deanna Durbin. Only after both options fell through did the role finally land in Judy's hands. What should have been a dream opportunity quickly revealed a darker side. Behind the colorful sets and magical storyline, Judy found herself dealing with constant and unwanted attention, including inappropriate behavior from some of the male actors playing the Munchkins. Years later, accounts from those close to her painted a troubling picture of what she endured during filming. Even the image of Dorothy that audiences now see as iconic almost looked completely different. At one point, the studio considered giving her a curly blonde wig, a look that was eventually scrapped. What remained, however, was the now famous blue gingham dress. It wasn't just a costume choice, it was strategic. The pattern created a soft visual effect on camera, and more importantly, the design helped conceal Judy's figure, keeping her appearance aligned with the studio's vision of youthful innocence. That control extended beyond wardrobe. To maintain the look they wanted, the studio pushed her through a strict and exhausting physical routine. Swimming, hiking, and constant sports like tennis or badminton became part of her daily life, often alongside her stunt double. It was all carefully managed, all designed to shape not just her performance, but her entire image. Despite the physical strain and the difficult environment, Judy delivered a performance that would outlive the circumstances around it. Her portrayal of Dorothy became timeless, even if the experience of bringing it to life was anything but. By 1939, she had reached a major milestone, earning an Academy Award for her performances in both The Wizard of Oz and Babes in Arms. It would remain the only Oscar of her career. As the 1940s began, the studio started transitioning her into more mature roles, a shift that came with new challenges. One of her earliest tests in this new phase came with Little Nellie Kelly. The role demanded more than anything she had done before. An accent, emotional depth, and even her first on-screen kiss. It was unfamiliar territory, and the discomfort showed. Her co-star George Murphy was openly critical, later describing their romantic scenes in harsh and dismissive terms. It was an awkward experience that hinted at the emotional struggles she would continue to face, both on and off screen. Around the same time, her personal life began to mirror the instability of her career. As a teenager, she fell deeply in love with bandleader Artie Shaw. For Judy, it felt like her first real relationship, intense and meaningful. But it ended abruptly when Shaw eloped with actress Lana Turner, leaving her heartbroken. Not long after, musician David Rose entered the picture. There was immediate interest, but also complications. He was still married. Once Judy turned 18, he proposed, forcing the studio to step in and delay any plans until his divorce was finalized. During that waiting period, Judy didn't stay still. She became involved with songwriter Johnny Mercer, another older married man. The relationship stirred plenty of gossip, even by Hollywood standards. Mercer became deeply attached to her, channeling his feelings into music, including the song I Remember You, which reflected just how strongly he felt. The affair didn't last, but its impact lingered. Even after they parted ways, their connection resurfaced from time to time, much to the frustration of those around them, including Mercer's wife. Eventually, David Rose finalized his divorce, and Judy moved forward with the marriage. But the union was strained almost from the start. The studio had already expressed concerns, and those concerns intensified in 1941 when Judy became pregnant. At the time, her public image was carefully crafted around innocence and youth. The idea of her becoming a mother didn't fit that narrative. Under pressure from both the studio and her own mother, she made the difficult decision to end the pregnancy. It was a deeply painful moment, and it wasn't the last. In 1943, during a brief relationship with Tyrone Power, she faced a similar situation and was once again pushed toward the same outcome. These experiences took a serious emotional toll. Her marriage to David Rose, already fragile, began to break under the weight of it all. Their personalities clashed. She was energetic and drawn to excitement, while he preferred a quieter life. More than that, the choices made during their relationship created a divide that couldn't be repaired. By 1944, they had separated. Amid all the turmoil, a turning point came with Meet Me in St. Louis. For the first time, Judy was cast as a true leading lady, not just the relatable girl next door. And behind the scenes, another transformation was taking place. Makeup artist Dorothy Pondell played a key role in reshaping how Judy saw herself. She encouraged her to abandon the artificial enhancements the studio had forced on her. nose discs, dental caps, and instead embrace her natural features. With subtle adjustments to her makeup and styling, Judy began to see a version of herself that felt authentic. That shift had a visible impact. On screen, she carried herself differently, with a confidence that hadn't been there before. It wasn't just a performance anymore. It felt personal. The result was a film that resonated deeply with audiences, including her unforgettable rendition of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Off-screen, her personal life continued to evolve. She became involved with Orson Welles, a relationship that remained complicated given his existing marriage to Rita Hayworth. At the same time, her connection with director Vincente Minnelli was growing. Minnelli had already played a role in reshaping her image during Meet Me in St. Louis, recognizing her potential beyond the roles she had been given. What began as a professional relationship gradually turned into something more. In 1945, Judy Garland and Vincente Minnelli were married, marking what seemed like a hopeful new chapter. The following year, she became pregnant again, and this time, the studio allowed her to keep the child. She gave birth to Liza Minnelli, who would later go on to build her own legacy in entertainment. From the outside, it looked like everything was finally coming together. But beneath that surface, Judy was struggling. Her reliance on substances continued to grow, and by the time she began working on The Pirate in 1948, the pressure became overwhelming. During production, she experienced a severe breakdown and had to step away to recover in a private facility. Although she eventually returned to complete the film, the delays drove up costs, and the movie failed commercially. Audiences also struggled to accept her in a more mature role, adding to the disappointment. That same year, her mental health reached a critical point. In July, she attempted to take her own life. She survived, but the incident led to further treatment and time in a psychiatric hospital. Despite everything, her career showed signs of resilience. Easter Parade became her biggest box office success, and the studio quickly tried to recreate that momentum by pairing her again with Fred Astaire in The Barkleys of Broadway. But behind the scenes, things were becoming increasingly unstable. Judy began using stronger substances, including morphine, alongside the medications she was already taking. Combined with alcohol, the effects were severe. She missed filming days, struggled with intense migraines, and her behavior became harder to manage. Eventually, the studio made a difficult decision. She was suspended from production, and Ginger Rogers was brought in to replace her. After a period of rest, Judy returned with renewed energy and delivered another successful performance in The Good Old Summertime. On the surface, it seemed like another comeback, but the pattern was becoming clear. Moments of brilliance followed by setbacks. And while audiences continued to see the star behind the scenes, the instability was quietly building towards something much bigger. When everything finally fell apart. As Judy Garland moved into her next major project, the cracks that had been forming for years finally started to show in full. On the set of Annie Get Your Gun, tensions quickly boiled over. She clashed constantly with director Busby Berkeley, but the truth ran deeper than just creative disagreements. By this point, Judy was battling something far more difficult, herself. Her confidence was slipping, and the role only made things worse. She struggled with the idea of playing a character she didn't see as glamorous, and that insecurity followed her onto the set every single day. Berkeley didn't help matters. He was openly critical, often harsh, and seemed to have little patience for what she was going through. He accused her of lacking energy, but what he was really seeing was a woman weighed down by depression. Behind the scenes, her condition was becoming more serious. In an attempt to stabilize her mental health, she underwent electroshock therapy. It was a desperate measure, and unfortunately, it didn't bring the relief she needed. At one point, pushed to her limit, Judy went directly to Louis B. Mayer, pleading for Berkeley to be removed from the production. Instead of improving the situation, it only added more pressure. Her struggles began spilling into her work. She started arriving late, sometimes not showing up at all. The reliability that had once made her a studio favorite was slipping away. Eventually, the studio reached its breaking point. MGM made the decision to let her go. After years of building her into a star, they cut ties completely. For Judy, it was a moment of harsh reality. With everything collapsing around her, she realized something had to change. Determined to regain control, she checked into a hospital in Boston. For the first time in a long while, the focus shifted to her well-being. Doctors worked to rebuild her routine from the ground up: regular sleep, proper meals, and most importantly, addressing her dependence on medication. Instead of masking the problem, they began carefully guiding her away from the substances that had dominated her life. During this difficult period, something unexpected helped shift her perspective. While in the hospital, she spent time with a group of children facing their own physical challenges. Their resilience and joy had a quiet but powerful impact on her. Being around them pulled her attention away from her own struggles, even if just for a moment, and gave her a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in years. When she eventually returned to Los Angeles, she wasn't the same person who had left. She was physically different, yes, but more importantly, she carried a sense of calm and happiness that had been missing for a long time. But Hollywood had not changed. The studio system still viewed her through the same narrow lens. Instead of recognizing her recovery, they focused on her weight. Almost immediately, the pressure to slim down returned, and with it came the same dangerous solution. Judy found herself slipping back into old habits, relying once again on pills to meet expectations. Summer Stock would mark the end of her long relationship with MGM. The film performed well financially, but behind the scenes, her inconsistency had cost the studio heavily. Executives began to question whether her talent was worth the ongoing instability. When similar issues followed her into another project, Royal Wedding, the situation reached a final breaking point. She lost the role, and the emotional fallout was severe. In a moment of deep despair, she attempted to take her own life. The injuries were not fatal, but the incident made headlines, amplifying her struggles for the public to see. It was clear that she needed support, but the system she had relied on for years was no longer there for her. After 15 years with MGM, the studio that had shaped her career decided to move on. By September 1950, Judy Garland was no longer under contract. Around the same time, her personal life was unraveling as well. Her marriage to Vincente Minnelli, already strained by years of pressure and instability, came to an end the following year. There were rumors and speculation surrounding their relationship, but at its core, it had simply been under too much strain for too long. With her career stalled and financial pressures mounting, Judy found herself at a crossroads. Then came a lifeline. Bing Crosby, recognizing her situation, invited her to appear on his radio show. It was an opportunity, but also a terrifying one. After everything she had been through, the idea of stepping back in front of an audience felt overwhelming. She feared judgment, imagined people watching her not as a performer, but as someone defined by her struggles. On the night of the broadcast, that fear nearly took over. She considered walking away entirely, but with encouragement from Crosby, she stayed. When she finally stepped up to perform, something shifted. The audience didn't see scandal or weakness. They saw Judy Garland. The voice, the presence, the connection, it was all still there. Those appearances on Bing Crosby's program became a turning point. She didn't just return, she reminded people why they had fallen in love with her in the first place. Over the course of several performances between 1950 and 1951, she rebuilt her confidence piece by piece. From there, she turned back to live performance, reconnecting with the stage where her journey had first begun. It proved to be exactly what she needed. Despite the personal challenges she was still facing, including her divorce, her career found new life. In 1951, she launched a concert tour that was met with overwhelming praise. Audiences responded not just to her voice, but to her resilience. When she performed at the London Palladium, the reception was extraordinary. The applause felt less like appreciation and more like a collective acknowledgement of everything she had overcome. The success continued in New York, where her performances at the Palace Theater set records and drew critical acclaim. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. For the first time in a long while, Judy Garland wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. And as her career surged forward once again, there was a growing sense that her personal life might finally be finding its footing too. Why Judy Garland refused to leave behind a single cent for her family. While Judy Garland was still legally married to Vincente Minnelli, her personal life took another sharp turn. She became involved with businessman Sidney Luft, a man who entered her world at one of her lowest points. Their connection was intense from the start, and Luft saw himself as someone who needed to protect her. He didn't just stand by her, he actively helped rebuild her career. Taking on the roles of producer and tour manager, he played a major part in the success of her live performances during this period. Their partnership quickly became both professional and personal. In 1952, they got married, and that same year, they welcomed their daughter, Lorna. But Luft believed Judy's story on the big screen wasn't finished. He was convinced she still had the power to captivate audiences in film, and together they set their sights on a major comeback. That comeback came in the form of A Star Is Born, produced with Warner Brothers. It was meant to be more than just a return. It was supposed to restore both her career and their finances. However, the road to that comeback was anything but smooth. As production began, Judy started slipping back into familiar patterns. Delays piled up, the schedule stretched thin, and tensions rose across the set. The head of the studio grew increasingly frustrated as costs climbed higher and higher. When filming finally wrapped, there was a sense of cautious hope, and at first, that hope seemed justified. Critics praised her performance, audiences embraced her return, and the film drew strong attention at the box office. But behind the numbers was a harsh reality. The production had been so expensive that the film couldn't recover its costs. Financially, it fell short. Still, one thing was undeniable. Judy's performance stood out as one of the strongest of her career. When award season came around, she was widely expected to win the Academy Award. It seemed almost certain. But on the night of the ceremony, she wasn't there. She had just given birth and was watching from her hospital room, where a camera crew had been set up in anticipation of her acceptance speech. Instead, the award went to Grace Kelly. The moment was shocking, not just for Judy, but for the entire industry. The disappointment was immediate and widespread, with many believing she had been overlooked for one of the most powerful performances of the year. As the years went on, the physical toll of her lifestyle became harder to ignore. By 1959, her health reached a breaking point when she was diagnosed with acute hepatitis. She spent weeks in the hospital, and when she was finally discharged, doctors gave her a grim outlook. They believed she had only a few years left to live and warned that she might never perform again. Surprisingly, Judy didn't react with despair. For the first time in her life, the constant pressure to perform was lifted. There was a sense of relief in being able to step away, even if it came under such difficult circumstances. But stepping away wasn't in her nature. Despite the diagnosis, she continued to push forward. At the same time, her financial situation was unraveling. Years of mismanagement, unpaid taxes, and poor financial decisions had left her in serious debt. Even as she struggled to stay afloat, she kept working, trying to regain control. During this period, she found a brief sense of stability in a relationship with actor Glenn Ford. It was a short-lived romance, but for a time, it offered her something close to peace. He supported her, often attending her performances quietly from the audience. But the relationship didn't last, and once it ended, she was forced to confront the ongoing collapse of her marriage to Sidney Luft. Their relationship had become increasingly volatile over the years. There were repeated attempts at separation, followed by reconciliation. But by 1963, the situation had reached a point where it could no longer be repaired. Judy filed for divorce, bringing forward serious allegations, including claims of abuse and mental cruelty. At the same time, she severed their professional ties, ending his role as her manager. With her personal life in turmoil, her career began to suffer again. After the cancellation of her television show, she returned to live performances, but the stability she once found on stage was no longer guaranteed. In 1964, during a run at a London nightclub known as Talk of the Town, things fell apart in a very public way. Reports described her arriving late and appearing intoxicated. At one point, she struggled to finish one of her most iconic songs. The audience, expecting the brilliance they remembered, responded harshly. The reaction was unforgiving, and the moment became one of the most painful scenes of her later career. After leaving Sidney Luft, Judy hoped for a fresh start with new management. She signed with agents Freddie Fields and David Begelman, expecting guidance and support. Instead, the partnership turned into another setback. Financial mismanagement and alleged misconduct left her in an even worse position than before. By 1966, her financial troubles had escalated dramatically. She owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in back taxes, and the pressure from authorities was constant. In an effort to stay afloat, she sold her home at a loss, but it wasn't enough. The following year, after completing a successful engagement in New York, most of her earnings were seized to cover her debts. Her personal life remained just as unstable. She entered a brief and troubled marriage with Mark Herron in 1965, but the relationship ended within months, marked by accusations from both sides. Even after everything, she continued searching for stability. In 1966, she met Mickey Deans under unusual circumstances. What began as a chance encounter turned into an on-and-off relationship that eventually led to marriage in 1969. By that point, her health and addiction struggles had become overwhelming. Deans tried to help revive her career, but the challenges were constant. On June 22, 1969, Judy Garland was found dead at the age of 47. The official cause was an accidental overdose of barbiturates, though years of physical strain and long-term health issues had undoubtedly played a role. At the time of her death, she was still widely recognized as a legend, but financially, she was in a difficult place. Years of poor contracts, exploitation, and personal struggles had taken their toll. She had earned enormous success, yet much of the financial reward had slipped away.